Thank you. Alright, it's Friday night, and the feeling's right. Gonna have some fun, show you how it's done. September edition McAgee3 Meetup 2022? Anyway, good evening, everybody. Happy Friday to each and every one of you, and welcome to our September edition of McAgee3 Meetup. I am your man, McAgee3. My guest tonight. Well, first off, before I do the introductions, hope everybody's well. Hope everybody's great. Hope everybody's had a wonderful day. If you're unemployed, have the day off, or just dealing with the world right now, I hope you have the opportunity to relax and decompress. So, my guest tonight is a very, very, very talented webcomic artist. He is the creator of a very, very well-made webcomic called The Crimson Fly. He is known by SkipperWing. SkipperWing, how are you?
It's good. It is good to be here. Thank you for the invite. Really honored.
Sweet, sweet, sweet. And of course, just like our past artsy guests that we've had, we will be doing a joint art stream right now. I kind of cheated and did a layout already, but yeah, because artists tend to be a lot faster at this stuff than I am. But I digress. SkipperWing, my friend, tell the crowd a little bit about yourself.
My name is SkipperWing. I went to school in D.C., the Washington branch of the Art Institutes, the Art Institute of Washington. Then after that, I was not ready to leave school, so I went to grad school down at the Savannah College of Art and Design. I interned in Atlanta, and then I went back to teaching. And somewhere along the side, I decided I was going to turn my graduate thesis into its own sort of pet project. And so now here we are.
Wow, you've actually done quite a bit. So did you said you graduated from AI, right?
Mm-hmm.
Okay, and then you just continued your education.
Yep.
Where did you say where you were teaching at?
So first I was teaching I went back to teach at the Art Institutes itself.
Mm-hmm.
And that was actually really cool because like I got to teach alongside all my old former professors.
Mm-hmm.
And it was a little awkward at first because everyone's like, wait, but you were a student, but like now you're a professor. This is weird. And so then that was nice, but then the Art Institutes kind of shut down.
Right.
So I was job hunting for about a year, and then I applied to this one school, Buena Vista University, in Storm Lake, Iowa.
Mm-hmm.
And that was good for a little while. And then I ended up moving on from there, and I ended up at the Savannah College of Art and Design for a hot minute.
Mm-hmm.
And then after that was pretty nice for a little bit, and then ended up moving on from that, and so now I'm just back at home waiting for the next big thing.
So you've been pretty much all over the place in terms of like your art career.
Mm-hmm.
No, go ahead.
Well, everywhere except I want to say maybe the mainstream.
Mm-hmm.
And like I don't know, maybe you might want to do that, maybe you might not.
Like what would be stopping you from going mainstream at this point?
Mostly that I like, because when most people go mainstream because you don't really have you want to do something, but you need the resources of the industry.
Right.
And I'm at a point in my life where I'm like, well, I can do the things that I want to do on my own.
Mm-hmm.
I don't need to go move to California to do webcomics, for example.
Right. Yeah, because like with the webcomics, if you just have the resources on hand in the spot that you're in right now, there's no need to shell out like a couple or a few grand to relocate.
Mm-hmm.
Because with webcomics, it's just you work on it at home and then you upload it on whatever platform that you're utilizing.
Mm-hmm.
Right. So I actually have notes for these questions, but I think I can kind of rattle these off fairly easily. So, why comic books specifically in terms of your content creation?
I get bored easily. And with books, it's a lot easier for me to convey what I want to do in comics than it is as prose. And that's not to knock prose. Prose is hard. Because there's only so many ways to say he said blah
Right.
blah 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 blah. She said blah 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 blah.
Right,
Um,
right.
but just the visual aspect of it is so much fun, and it's one of those things that also just never gets old either.
Mm-hmm. How long have you been? I mean, I guess I could say how long you've been drawing comics, but let's start with the basics. Like, how long have you been drawing just in general?
Uh, that's a toughie. I want to say since age 11 ish.
Mm-hmm.
In fact, maybe even further back than that, because my family, we grew up overseas. So I was living in both, first in Senegal for about 4 years,
Mm-hmm.
then Ethiopia for 3 years after that.
Mm-hmm.
And a lot of the stuff that we have in the West, like a lot of the kids stuff that we had in the West, we didn't have over there.
Right.
So what I would do is like, oh, well, I want the Megazord from Power Rangers. Well, I'll just draw it as a cardboard cutout, um, and then I'll play with it that way.
No kidding.
And it's fun. It's its own brand of fun.
Yeah, I
Um,
that's
hmm?
actually very interesting because when I was growing up, it wasn't specifically like a Megazord, but rather I just made up my own little character. Rather, someone drew a character on a piece of paper, and then I thought it looked really neat, so I actually I cut it out of the paper and put like a little stem on it and played with it like it was a doll. And then
Yeah.
I was like, I wonder if I can just make this myself. And then that's how I started drawing. So I bring that up because there's a bit of a parallel with what you just said with your art beginnings as there was with me. So that's why I was like, no kidding, like that was actually very interesting.
I feel that. I feel that. And then I had a friend. Once we moved back, like I got into Dragon Ball,
Right,
and when I moved back, I got a friend who got me into Dragon Ball Z proper. So
right,
the blonde dude was actually Goku,
right.
but like just with a power up. And I was like, oh, that makes more sense now. Because like at the time, like the Frieza saga had already run its course,
Uh
and they were like mostly all the way through the Buu saga. And I was just like, okay, why is everybody calling this blonde dude Goku? That's not got black hair. What we doing here?
huh. Oh,
But
so you've actually watched Dragon Ball first? Yes.
uh, no, Dragon Ball Z, and then I caught Dragon Ball on a Toonami.
Oh, okay, okay, okay.
But I was, like I said, I was coming in late, so
Right.
like I was watching Dragon Ball Z in order,
Uh huh.
and then finding out that there was a prequel series after the fact, and that also like the Super Saiyan thing was a thing.
Right.
So like I started drawing Super Saiyans,
Right.
and the cool thing about Toriyama's art is that like, or just not just Toriyama's art, but just like shonen art in general, is that like at some point somebody's gonna end up half naked.
Right.
So
if they do enough shouting, or if they do enough focusing their power of friendship, clothes will
hmm
begin to start flying off.
hmm and it's an unorthodox way to learn anatomy because you don't really know why you're putting the muscles where they're putting them,
Right.
but like it works because you get something semi accurate. So from there, learning Dragon Ball Z, then I eventually went back to. Well, my dad got his hands on a. He used his tax return to give me and my sister presents. So
Uh
he
huh.
got. So my sister, she got a Game Boy Advance, which was really cool,
Right.
and I got myself one a Dreamcast.
Oh yeah, the really really good system. Yes.
I mean, I didn't know that at the time. I just was like, hey, cool, my own personal console that I don't have to share.
Right.
And so then I got into Naoto Oshima. I think it was Naoto Oshima's redesigns for Sonic.
Uh-huh.
And I was just like, Sonic, he looks really cool. I don't know what it is about him because I don't remember him having green eyes, and were the limbs always that lanky?
Right, right, right. Yeah,
And
we
then,
because we went from a stumpy, little bit chubby Sonic to like a much taller, more streamlined Sonic, for lack of a better term.
yeah, Tony Hawk Sonic.
Right, Tony Hawk Sonic, is that really a term, or is that what you use?
No, But I mean, that's what he felt like, because you had City Escape where you're just like rolling around
Yeah,
at the
the
speed
speed
of
of sound. Got places
mm-hmm.
to go. Gotta follow my
My
rainbow.
rainbow.
Please don't get me started. Oh
And so
my.
like I was like, oh my god, this character is so cool now. Let me learn how to draw him.
Right.
Um, and the cool thing about Sonic is that like their template for character design is on point
Mm-hmm.
because they just you can just anybody can make a Sonic character.
Yeah.
Like and when you hit on a design like that where everybody can just make their own variation on it, that's gold.
Yeah, you're definitely like in the right direction
Mm-hmm.
in terms of what it is that you're, what it is that you're that you've put together.
Mm-hmm. So from there, then I got back into the once the Raimi Spider-Man movies came out, I started getting back into drawing Spider-Man.
Mm-hmm.
And then from there, this was like around high school. The a representative from the art institutes came by and was just like, hey, so you can learn how to make comics, and I'm like, I can learn how to do the what? So that's how I ended up at the art institutes, and that's how my formal education began.
Oh, okay. So let's
Mm-hmm.
see here. So what was your time? What was your time frame of teaching at AI? Like from what year to what year?
I want to say from 2016 to about 2018. I want to
Okay.
say it's about a 3 year period,
Oh,
and
okay.
so what had happened is I'd come home from Atlanta,
Mm-hmm.
and I was looking for work, and I hadn't quite finished my graduate thesis, which is why I hadn't just gone straight to AIW.
Mm-hmm.
But like I'd basically gotten to a point where I was like, oh, this is mostly done. Um, so I popped by because like my cousin had come by and she was staying with us because she was getting a job with the FBI
Mm-hmm.
in DC. And my dad was just like, you gotta go find something else that you want to do, yada yada yada,
Mm-hmm.
and just pop by the school and see if they're looking for people. And I was just like, they're busy, they've got stuff to do, they don't need somebody like me popping by. So I popped by.
Mm-hmm.
Um, and then Tillman sees me, and he's just, or the department head Brian Tillman sees me, and he's just like, "Yo, so, I heard you were at SCAD, and did you get your master's?" And I was like, "Yeah." He's like, "Well, do you want a job?" And I'm like, "Hell yeah!"
So
And that's
it's always good to have those daggone those resources in place.
mhm. That's why I always used to tell students, was just like the networking is so important
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
because
Yeah. Cause
oh
you cause you never know like when those resources can make or break a situation where you can actually plant your feet and be able
mm-hmm.
to just get the ball rolling, as opposed to just having to constantly search for that career path that you're essentially searching for. So.
Mm-hmm. In fact, that's kind of how I ended up in Atlanta after grad school.
Mhm.
Cause like I was just popping by one of the coffee shops, and I was talking to my friend who was a barista there, who was a former roommate of mine, and he's like, "Yo, Skip, there's somebody who's looking for an animation intern in Atlanta, and I can't take it because I'm still in school and I'm working here,
Right.
and it's not really my thing. But do you want to do it?" So like about a week later, I took a bus up to Atlanta
Mhm.
and had my interview, and they hired me.
You just knocked it out of the park.
Well, sorta. I was not who I am now.
Mhm.
There was a lot of kinks that needed working out as an individual, but in terms of just getting the internship by virtue of just knowing a guy who knew a guy.
Knowing a guy who knew the other guy.
Mm-hmm.
so
So
so tell me, how did the name Skipperwing come about?
uh, my last name, real life, is Bird.
Okay.
And I used to wear a Greek fisherman's cap that looked like a skipper's cap because I was super obsessed with Mario, and I was like, "Oh, this hat looks like a Mario hat. Let me wear that."
Mm.
And so I just picked, okay, so skipper's cap, skipper, and then bird's wing, and then let's go. And it just stuck.
Nice.
Um, Although it was funny because in grad school I had a friend who was just like, since your first initial starts with C and your last name is Bird, C Bird Productions. How about that? I'm like, oh, that's so good. I'm not using it because I've already got SkipperWing. But
Right. Oh,
Seabird Productions was so good.
yeah, thanks. That was cool after the fact. However, uh, might have to save that for somebody else, I guess.
And it's funny because like for the first few years, everybody thought that SkipperWing was the Crimson Fly, and I was like, no, 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 no. I am SkipperWing. Crimson Fly is a totally separate person. And I'm like, oh, so it's your author avatar? No, but
No, it is your character that
mm-hmm,
you utilize in your narrative.
mm-hmm. So that was where that came from.
Okay.
Um, and it
Okay.
was it was. I got lucky that it kind of sounds like its own thing.
Mhm. Yeah. So, all right. So we talked about how you came about with your name, not referring to the movie, mind you. Um, so I would like to know how the Crimson Fly came about. What was the what was the journey like for your little fly kid here?
I wanted a spider sona before spider sonas were a thing.
Okay.
Um, so like, cause I was a young college kid, and I was just like, oh well, I want my own superhero, and I want it to be Spider Man, but Marvel's never gonna let me use Spider Man.
Right.
So I was just like, well, what's the next adjacent bug that I can use? And I settled on flies because flies are annoying.
Right.
Um,
And for those that haven't already read the Crimson Fly, that shows up quite a bit in his comic strip. But please continue. I'm sorry.
but no, it's all good. So the character started off with like this sort of what if in a world where everybody has superpowers, and this was like 10 years before My Hero Academia.
Right, right, right. Oh boy. Yeah.
Um,
Go on.
but mhm, but like the problem with that is that like you have to account for how the real world would shift if everybody always had powers.
Right.
Like you wouldn't like some like if half the population or a third of the population could fly, why wouldn't every window be available to that population to just go in the window?
Right.
And like how would crime and all that stuff work? And I did not have the brain power to really think that through or want to think that through.
Right. Because that could take a obscene amount of time to try to piece something like that together and to make it interesting and or make sense.
Hmm. Like that's why like even in My Hero Academia, they're like, no, 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 we haven't always had powers. This just is a cataclysm that happened right before the main characters were born. So we've the main characters have always had powers, but the world has not had to be redesigned to accommodate powers yet.
Right.
Um, but the main reason that and this was at back the time the character was called the Red Fly. The Red Fly died, was because I was writing comics from strip to strip. So I'd say, okay, well, let's make a page,
Mm-hmm.
and then what happens? Oh, and then the next page happens, and then what happens? And then the next page, and I didn't really have an ending in mind.
Right.
So I got like maybe 8 pages into the first issue,
Mm-hmm.
and that just burnt out
Oh.
because I was just like, I don't know where this is going. I'm tired. I don't want to do this anymore. So I just kind of sat, and then eventually there was a some sort of glitch on the hosting
Mm-hmm.
that just it broke the site, and I was just like, yep, nope, just move on very quietly.
Dang.
Um, but then like I eventually in grad school I revisited the idea.
Mm-hmm.
And I did it as a one shot for my graduate thesis of like, okay, well, let's prove that animated comics can be a thing.
Mm-hmm.
And I revisited it and I was like, yeah, this is cool. But then I was like, well, let's make some more comics, but we're not going to make the same mistake we made last time. So we're going to have an endpoint in mind.
Right.
And that was going pretty good for a little bit. And then both Dropbox changed how their hosting works. And then also Adobe announced in 2017, yeah, we're going to stop supporting the Flash player.
Yeah, I remember when that happened. Oh my gosh.
And I was just like, okay, but the only way to read my comics is in the Flash player.
Right.
And so what they ended up doing is they're like, well, here's a compromise. We're going to create this. We're going to switch to HTML5 and we're going to switch to JavaScript. So if you can learn JavaScript in Adobe Animate, then you can keep making your comics how you want. Now, they didn't say this to me directly. This was just like the general statement.
Right.
So at that point, I was just like, okay, well, I'm going to take some time off and I'm going to learn how to make these comics the way that I can in Adobe Animate and still keep the essence of the animated comic book, but now for HTML5. And the problem there was that the HTML5 architecture didn't work the same way as the Adobe as the ActionScript 3 architecture that Adobe had been using.
Right.
So this meant reformatting my comics entirely. So Gone was like the, hey, so we're just gonna slowly unfurl every.
What's up, Kaiser? How you doing?
Hmm?
We got Kaiser in the house. I guess he felt his ears burning. But no, I'm sorry. Please continue. Please continue with your story.
So I was just like, so Gone was like, okay, well, we're gonna slowly unfurl each panel until you get an entire comic strip, and now it's just like panel to panel to panel to panel. And as I was doing this, my style was slowly changing, and the character was evolving, and I kind of realized I don't want to do a serialized story anymore. I just want to do episodic storytelling because that's more fun to me.
Right.
It's like do a joke, and then let it sit, and then next week we do another joke, and so on and so forth. And if I end up wanting to tell a story, well, then I can tell a story out of these small bits and pieces. But if I end up not wanting to tell a story, then I'm fine. It's all good. So that's how the current incarnation has come across. And I think the character's been like rebooted like 3 to 4 times at this point. But it just, every time it reboots, it gets better and better.
Well, that's good. Oh my gosh, this thing is acting all wonky. Alright, well. Alright, so let's see here. So we got the Crimson Fly here, and your very, very, very traumatic experience of daggone Flash being taken down. Yeah, man, because some of my more fun animations that I did when I was at AI was on Flash, and now it's like can't use it anymore unless you learn this other thing. So good grief, man. I feel your pain on that. What the heck? What's this thing doing here? Saying I'm not. Okay. I will figure that out later. I'm not gonna worry about it. All right. So anyway, let's proceed onward. I'm sure you're trying to pull up your references that you gave me so I can get the color scheme down. Let's see here. What do you do on your downtime? What kind of downtime stuff do you do?
The internet, for better or for worse. So I'm usually I'm usually watching YouTube video essays and just like changing, and it's not the good ones. It's just whatever's catching my time at the moment.
Right.
Ultimately, I'm also hanging out in other people's streams and seeing what they're doing and having fun and just kind of making connections. Also, video games. Lots and lots of video games.
Sweet.
Like current favorites are Splatoon 3 and Marvel's Spider-Man.
I've seen Splatoon 3. So how far do you like play online a lot or?
of both. Like I mainly do play the single player because like I am not a shooter player by default. Like I'm usually like I want to get in your face, and I want to punch you in the face.
Right.
When I'm playing games, I don't want to be like, okay, well I can like 360 no scope this person from like 50 meters. Like that's not me.
Oh.
And what I love about Splatoon is that like you don't have to be good at shooting games,
Mm-hmm.
because the goal is just like not hit the wall, hit the floor with as much paint as you can.
Right.
Um, and so if you can do that, well then like you're golden. And what's cool is that they've introduced melee weapons. So like I've got a giant ink brush that I swing like a giant club,
Mm-hmm.
and that's my jam.
Sweet,
It's just getting close and then whacking people in the face with a giant paintbrush, which is always fun.
Mm-hmm. At some point, I'll have to give Splatoon a shot because I've seen a lot of people play it.
Oh yeah, and
in the
like
past.
it's brilliant because again, you don't have to be good at killing people.
Right.
Just do whatever your team needs you to do, and then you're good.
Color all of the things, color
Mm-hmm.
them and color them often.
In fact, like, one of my favorite things to do is just like, oh, I see the fighting's happening over here. Well, I'm just gonna go where nobody else is, and I'm just gonna color all of that. And if I'm lucky, I can sneak behind enemy lines and get all of their spaces too, while they're busy trying to kill my teammates.
Mm.
And so it's so much fun. Plus, just like moving through ink, it feels it's such a good feeling. Like when you're walking, you're just like, this is kind of jank. It's not fun. It's Mario.
Right.
And when you're swimming through ink, it's like, oh, this is super fast. It's like Sonic.
It all comes back to Sonic. You're definitely a Sonic fanboy.
Oh, definitely. That being said, like not to the extent of just always like everything Sonic is my jam.
Right.
Like I like the second movie.
Mm-hmm.
I was not a fan of James Marsden goes on another road trip with a furry companion.
Yeah, man, because it was just like, because one of my issues when it comes to like stories where you've got an anthropomorphic character and then you have a human character, like the human characters just seem to be there because the actors want screen time and that's really it.
Mm-hmm.
But ultimately, they don't really impact the narrative much, if at all. So
Mm-hmm. And
the
they got a lot better about that in the second movie.
mm-hmm. But
But like that first one, I was just like, ugh. Like, don't be ashamed of making a Sonic movie or an
right,
animated movie.
yeah, just make the daggone movie. But let me see here.
But
So so let me see. Let me get back to my notes, y'all. So you said that the Crimson Fly was inspired due to Spider-Man. Um, so how tough was it to grow your platform for your IP, like your website and everything? Like, how was it kind of tough, or did everything just kind of fall into place? Like, how was that for you?
for making things relatively simple.
Mm-hmm.
It's just like you pay for a website, figure out how to upload first Swift files, and then eventually HTML zip packages, um, and then figure out how and where to post on Facebook. The hard part for me has always been people,
Ah.
because like hot tea moment, people are drawn to what's familiar to them.
Mm-hmm.
And so if it's not familiar, then they don't buy into it.
Right.
You get a few people where it's like, oh yeah, no, I'm looking for something new, I'm looking for something crazy,
Right.
or oh yeah, no, like I know you're solid, you're a good person, etc., you're reliable.
Right.
But for the most people, it's like cool, but I wish this was just actually Spider-Man,
Right.
which is funnily enough something that I guess the comparison has never been drawn, and I'm kind of grateful for that.
Mm-hmm.
But um I do get the sense that people would rather be reading Spider-Man.
Right. 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 Instead of
So,
like what you've put together.
mm-hmm. Like And what's interesting is that like I told because my dad and I we were talking about this today,
Mm-hmm.
and it's just like I don't know why we need to keep changing the character's race, changing them to make a black Spider-Man, make a black Captain America, and for full disclosure, IRL I am black.
Okay.
Um, and I was like, well, Dad, we are making these things, but people are not reciprocating.
Right.
So until the audience, and this is what like a hashtag consumption without responsibility, like until the audience learns to consume responsibly, you're gonna keep getting reboots and remakes and rehashes. Whereas all the indies on the side are like, yeah, here's my indie character that you guys keep saying you want, and oh, you want more Spider-Man? Okay, I'll
Right.
put mine. Hmm?
Yeah, like, or like, freaking. I think Kaiser might have mentioned this, where it's like, oh, that's cool, that's great. Is that Scorpion?
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Right, right. Yeah,
And
because
then
and then that's I guess that's why when it comes to like the overall industry, they lean more towards revisiting the already existing IP and like original IPs. Like it's a tough sell to make
mm-hmm.
because you're literally just trying to pitch something to folks from like the ground up with like no real context.
Mm-hmm.
Um,
And
and maybe that's probably why there's a lot of creators that out there that feel as though like in order to get the eyes in their direction that they have to make something that is somewhat similar to something that already exists so that way like at a glance they'll see one thing but when they look closer they see it's something else.
and the other issue is that you can't tell the audience that hey, you guys are the reason I'm not successful.
Right, right,
Because
right.
then it becomes, well, you're not trying hard enough, or it's not good, or it's not my fault. I can't find it.
Right, right, right.
So it's a whole mess of issues.
Hmm.
But like making it's easy, relatively speaking. Like if you wanna put it on Tapas, you want to put it on Webtoon. Webtoon is free. Tapas is free. Um, Global Comics is free. You want to put it there? You can do it. It's just um getting people to read it. That's the hard part.
Hmm.
And when
Yeah.
somebody figures that out, that without being with a for a universal for anybody, not just people who have a art style that like audiences just happen to like.
Right.
Let me know because I will happily change my tune otherwise.
Yeah, and like you said, it's very difficult to get people into something brand new. Um, and those that are actually looking for something brand new, like they're kind of well, not even kinda. They're literally like the minority.
Mm-hmm.
Um, cause like I'm one of those few people where it's like there was a thing on YouTube along I don't know it might still be there. It's called Dragon Ball Epsilon or something like that.
Oh, Dragon Ball Absalon. Yeah, I've heard of it. Never seen it.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. So basically, it's basically it's a fan thing that was made where they kind of took the existing characters of Dragon Ball, essentially Dragon Ball Z and or GT, and did their own little take on like their story and whatnot. And my whole thing was like, because I was introduced to it by my wife,
Mm-hmm.
and I was just sitting there and we got 1 minute before your our little meeting thing pops away. Um, I just remember looking at it and I'm just like, why couldn't they just use their own original characters for this, right? Just like,
Mm-hmm.
because the thing that took me away from it was the fact that it was in like real world like New York and stuff, and I was like, no, that they kind of missed the whole point of this franchise.
Mm-hmm. It's Journey to the West.
Right.
Oh, free Zoom ending has ended. Wow.
Yeah. So let's see here.
Let me take a pause right quick, and then while I get set back up again.
Yeah. I'm I'm trying to see if maybe what'll happen if I try to do another. Does it mean I have to? All right, here is the fun part, you guys, because Zoom is completely different from what it was.
Yeah, this used to be free.
Yeah, this did used to be free. I'm gonna see what happens. Oh, let me switch screens real quick. There we go. Don't want to dox anybody. Yeah, so I'm gonna see if this actually does block us or what. All right, so we'll see what happens.
I think worst case scenarios, I think we can take it to Discord.
Yes. We can kind of see if we can piece it together through Discord. And see if we can make it work that way. All right. So I sent the link to you. Let me bring the screen back up. It's all right. These things happen. The show must go on, and we just figure it out as we go. Yeah, because I was looking to see, like, what do you mean update? And it's like, this much a month. And I was like, okay.
Hey, and we back.
And, yep, okay, well, we're not out the woods yet. We gotta see if it'll still let us do it. Or if it's gonna be, it looks like it might give us another 40 minutes. I guess that's not too terrible. It's a little bit like I'll take annoying over just unable, right? So yeah, okay. So looks like that's what we're doing. Okay, so cool. So we're back.
Awesome.
Sweet. Okay. Also, Kaiser says that you better be making merch on your downtime.
I want to. I need to find an audience that's willing to pay for that sort of thing.
Right.
Because I had somebody on one of my alternate accounts. They were like, "Hey, so you drew this character a certain way," and then like, is it true that if I pay for this amount on the subscription service, I will get to see the character that way? And I'm like, yeah. And they signed up right away, and I was just like, you know what? Like, we're gonna give that option forever now if that gets more people in.
Right.
So it's always a matter of just like it's not a matter of wanting to make the merch. It's about making the merch for enough merch that rather finding enough people to justify the cost of making merch.
Right.
Because Kaiser and his family have always been super supportive. But the unfortunate reality of living in a capitalist society is I need more than 7 people to support.
Right. Because that'll only get you but so far, and alas, livable wages is definitely like a thing, especially when it comes to something that you're trying to do like on a career level. So yeah, I've spoken to another artist a ways back, and they were saying something similar in the fact that yeah, I've made like some headway on like social media with like the hits and everything, and people coming through and checking out my stuff. But it's like once you get to the part where like you're making merchandise and all this other stuff, like your family or close friends, they can kind of help you out a little bit, but it still has to be able to extend outside of those folks because they only got but so much money, and they have living expenses they have to take care of as well. So yeah, I can see and understand where doing merchandise can be a little bit on the dicey side, especially if your consumer group is shaky at best.
Because like the cool thing is that like now Amazon lets you make shirts. You just submit a design and then boom, and Amazon takes care of the rest.
Right.
You want 3D prints you want 3D sculptures of your figures? I mean, yeah, like learning Blender or learning Nomad is not easy, but it can be done. And then once you've done that, then you can go to Shapeways, and then they can 3D print it for you. And there's kind of no excuse in today's day and age. It's like, oh, you want to make the merch? Well, yeah, then here are the tools.
Right.
But just don't be surprised when it's like, okay, cool. So I've made this awesome $100 3D figure, and I need like I need 1,000 people to buy it, and
Right.
then suddenly you've made you've got these 30 figures that are just sitting in your house,
Right.
and you're like, okay, I don't need these. I need somebody to buy it, and everybody's like, well, I've got bills to pay. I've got this other thing I'm working on. I
Right.
can't support for one reason or another.
Right.
And it's like, well, okay, then this thing is just not going to exist. And they were like, well, why isn't it going to exist? It's like,
Because
well,
there's no what is it? Demand for it. There we go.
mm-hmm.
That's the word. Though, however, there is I believe there is like a site that you can use where if you're doing merch, like the amount of merch that you have is like on a case by case basis, and they take care of the storage for you.
Mm-hmm.
One of my content creator friends actually uses it, and I actually got a T-shirt from him.
Ooh.
I'd have to look up what it is, but I can probably get back to you on that information
Yeah, I would
if that
definitely
helps.
appreciate that.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
So, um, so has the Crimson Fly been like the only comic that you've worked on, or have you worked on other things? Are you working on other things?
In terms of comics, it's the only thing right now.
Mm-hmm.
Just because like everything I want to do in a comic, I can do in the Crimson Fly for the most part.
Right.
But I am working on a series of video essays because like I like to talk. I like to talk a lot.
Mm-hmm.
And the thing is that like I usually just put everything I want to say on Facebook.
Mm-hmm.
But the problem there is that like it's limited to the 20 or so people who have access to my Facebook feed.
Right.
So, I figure I might as well start playing the game in terms of like YouTube and social media,
Right.
and start making video essays about things that I want to talk about.
Right.
So, like the first one I'm working on that I haven't put I keep getting distracted from is about Captain America, specifically the Sam Wilson variant.
Mm-hmm.
And how like in the first episode of Falcon and the Winter Soldier, he goes on a mission to rescue a dude from enemy terrorists. And I'm like, hey, this is the same one as Steve's missions, the Steve Rogers one in Captain America: The Winter Soldier.
Right.
It's the same thing. It's just this one's in the air, and that one was was on the sea.
Okay.
And I was just like, why isn't anybody talking about this? This is you want to know why Sam Wilson should be Captain America? This is it right here. This is the show telling you.
Right.
Like, and then some other little fun tidbits so like like how everybody made a meme out of On Your Left.
Yeah. I do. I am somewhat aware of that. Yes.
So it's like they're running, and then Steve passes Sam on your left, and he keeps doing it throughout the movie, and the movie turns it into a bit of a moment at the very end when Sam wakes up Steve wakes up on Sam's left in the hospital,
Oh
the military
boy.
hospital. But what's also cool about that is that if Steve keeps passing Sam on Sam's left, and Sam is always on Steve's right, guess what that makes Sam?
A lefty, left wing. What?
Nah, it makes Sam Steve's literal right hand man.
Ah, see, I knew there was some sort of pun or something there. Just my brain wasn't processing fast enough.
Mm-hmm. And I was just like, how is nobody talking about this? This is awesome. So like I want to do a video about that, or how and I know you know where this is going. Like the first level, I'm playing this one Sonic game, and like you get to the end, and the game says, "Okay, cool, that's pretty cool. Here's your C ranking."
Right.
And I'm like, C. Oh well, let me play this level again.
Right.
I'll get you a B, or I'll get an A ranking, and then the game spits back out a B ranking. You're like, okay. Clearly, I am doing something wrong.
Mm-hmm.
And you just keep going and going and going, and like the levels get more and more fun as you basically because the Sonic games are just basically they're roller coasters, and
Yeah.
so you're just optimizing the roller coaster.
Unless you're trying to get the Chaos Emeralds, then
Yep.
then you're then you're essentially just not playing the game, so to speak.
Hmm. So I want to talk about how that works for the first level of Sonic Generations, because everybody's also like, oh, it's just the games play themselves, and I'm like, they don't, but go on.
Right.
Like the good ones don't.
Right.
And so here's an example of them doing it in the first level and how that's just like peak Sonic game design for like the next 10 years.
Hmm.
And then after that, really controversial. So a while ago back, Capcom was in a rut with regards to their Japanese IPs.
Hmm.
And they were like, well, what do we do? Because Phil Fish made fun of them at GDC. It was just like, your games as Japanese developers suck. And Keiji Inafune was like, yeah, he's kind of right.
I think I might have heard about that. Go on.
So, so Capcom decided that they were going to reboot some of their franchises, and the most infamous reboot that nobody liked was DMC Devil May Cry.
Ah, that's why this sounds familiar. Okay, please continue.
And so, like, my lead-in for that is like so at the beginning of the game, so when they reboot the game, the character Dante looks a lot different than the old version, and the old version had white hair,
Right.
and he looked like he looked like a cowboy who performs as Chippendales.
Yes.
And so when they rebooted it, the new Dante had black hair, and so at the beginning of the game, Dante's like Dante, a wig of old Dante falls on the head of new Dante, and he's less like, and it looks ridiculous on him.
Right.
He says aggressively, "Not in a million years," and then throws it off, and he goes and he does his edgy nonsense.
Yeah, very, very pretentious.
But like the cool thing is that like as the game progresses and new Dante unlocks more of his devil power, his hair starts changing color.
Mm-hmm.
Until by the end of the game, his hair is completely white.
Yeah, and it just stays white.
Mm-hmm. But like the fans were so ready to be mad about this that like they never got that far, or they didn't allow themselves to get that far.
So do you think, since we're talking about DMC, do you think maybe that either like perhaps the hair staying white might have been like a matter of fact type of add-on that probably wasn't intended, or do you feel that because of how they handled the beginning stages of the narrative, that it essentially just kind of ruined what possible effect they could have had once they got to the end?
I think that it was a victim of bad marketing, where fans saw this moment, and they assumed, and I think that the meeting's still going.
Yeah, still here.
They saw this moment and they thought, and they saw, absent of context, the game is making fun of us. They're making fun of us for liking old Dante.
Right.
And they think that we're that nerds are sad and pathetic people.
Right.
Who don't deserve anything.
Right. In so many words. Right.
Mm-hmm. And it's like when you watch something absent of context, or you hear it out of context, it's like yes, you're gonna be mad.
Mm-hmm.
It's like what's happening with the Grand Theft Auto 6 leaks right now, where everybody's like, "Oh, that looks so bad." And it's like, well, yeah, you're not supposed to be seeing it right now.
Right. This is stuff that's probably still in development. Like this isn't the final product. This is just where they're at the time. Mm-hmm. Right. So yeah, continue.
And like, I think what they wanted to show off was how immature new Dante was by making fun, like seemingly making fun of old Dante.
Right.
And so, because by the end of the game, he's basically the Dante from Devil May Cry 3, which is a prequel to all the other games.
Right.
And so my thing is just like, look, the game is pretty good, but you gotta let go of wanting to be mad at it.
Mm-hmm. I can understand that.
And so, like, because like, you look at the designs for, like, the protagonist of Devil May Cry 5, and even the designs for Dante in Devil May Cry 5, where it's an older Dante, but his coat is not as bright anime red as it used to be.
Mm-hmm.
And he's not looking so much like an older version of the of Devil May Cry 1 Dante or Devil May Cry 2 Dante. He's looking like an older version of Devil May Cry 3 Dante,
Mm-hmm.
and more importantly, DMC Devil May Cry Dante,
Mm-hmm.
where he's got the red coat because he thinks it's cool,
Mm-hmm.
but he's not wearing anything else because he doesn't need to. He doesn't need to pretend that armor that he doesn't even need to use is cool.
Right.
Or dressing like Blade is cool. He just dresses how he wants to dress.
Mm-hmm.
Or how the character of Nero from Devil May Cry 4, when he got redesigned, he's got more of a punky attitude. His hair has been his long anime hair has been shorn back to resemble more of a punk cut.
Mm-hmm.
And basically, both Dante and Nero look more like DMC Devil May Cry Dante. Not that anybody will admit it.
Right. Because by that one, we're not talking about the one that Nero debuted in. We're talking about the more recent one where, spoiler, you had the dude with the crow and the dog, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. Because in that one, that's when they started using more facial recognition animation styles, so that way the characters look more like actual people.
Mm-hmm. And the thing is that like DMC Devil May Cry is not with, and the thing is that like in terms of theme and plotting, there's a lot of stuff that game gets right. Like the whole idea of like, oh, the world is controlled by greed and we're doing it to ourselves by virtue of just being greedy humans. Like I can rock with that as a theme.
Mm-hmm.
The simplified controls for like people who are not Devil May Cry fans, like that's really cool. Especially the whole like, hey, by the way, one of your default moves is a grappling hook, because right after you finish knocking everybody else away, now you have to get them back. But instead of having to run over to the person that you've knocked over, you just throw out your grappling hook and grapple to them, or pull them to you.
Mm-hmm.
Which I thought was really cool as a gameplay element.
Yeah.
And like I like the idea of Dante and his twin brother Virgil being half angel, half demon, rather than half and having that reflect the gameplay with their different weapon types, rather than, oh yeah, he's just half human, but he might as well just be a full devil.
Right.
But that's not to say that it got everything right. Like there's a scene where the protagonists shoot a pregnant woman through the belly before killing her, and I'm like, that's not good, guys. That's kind of gross.
Yeah, that was pretty rough. Like, I think.
Like,
go ahead. No, go ahead.
Or like at one point, one of the characters, she says, yeah, I was on medication, but the medication was making me weak, so I dropped it. I'm like, that's not, no, man. Like yes, medication isn't perfect, but it does exist for a reason.
Mm-hmm. Because it seems like with some of the stuff that you just mentioned, it's probably, besides the fact that it's probably in bad taste, but also like you have a more personal outlook on it, so it makes it even more distasteful.
And and to be fair, the marketing was handled poorly. Like if you insult the fans, like the fans have the money.
Right.
They're going to they're going to respond how they respond, and like you have to play ball with that.
Right.
That's kind of something I want to have with all my video essays too, where it's just like in Captain America, I'm like, Sam's speech at the end of Falcon and Winter Soldier left a lot to be desired. But I mean, that's kind of a problem with Captain America's speeches in general, where it's just like, this means whatever you want it to mean. It doesn't say anything. Like his "You Move" speech from the Civil War, both the comics and the movie. Just like you plant your foot and you say "You move," and I'm like, that's all well and good, Cap, but like that can apply both to people who are against equal rights for other people, in as much as it can apply for people trying to do the right thing.
Right.
It doesn't have as much power as you say, and it's like with Sam Wilson, so it's like, you have to do better, Senator. I'm like, do better how, Sam?
Thank you for that specification. Thank you.
So like I don't want to give it because I mean I don't think that the antidote to cinema sins is cinema wins.
I
Whereas,
like how you put that. I like that phrase you just coined there.
yeah. Whereas like cinema wins is nice, but it's not like it's balanced analysis and commentary, not simply praise blind praise for a thing.
Right.
So that's what I want to do. I just have to, and I also want them to be animated because I like watching some video essays, but there's some where I'm just like, I'm just gonna put this on in the background while I take a shower or while I cook some food.
Right.
And then I'm just like, okay, well then you're not really taking advantage of the medium of YouTube because YouTube is for video. Like, why is this not a podcast instead?
Right.
And I mean,
with your video essays, because you said you wanted to put animation on them, so would you be using like your own unique avatar as you're speaking, or?
yep. Yeah, I've been working on a puppet for them for a bit too. The character's called Skip.
Mm-hmm.
And the series will be called Pop Wings, and it'll either start at the end of this year or sometime next year, or at the beginning of next year. And so it'll basically just be the character, not just sitting at a desk and talking, but just like actual visual representations of the things that I want to talk about. Like how in the Sam Wilson essay, there's a point where I point out that like everybody can fly, and Sam's only superpower is fly is good, and everybody can do that. Like Thor flies by hammer, Iron Man flies with push beams, and Scarlet Witch flies with luck magic.
You say luck magic?
Yep.
Wait, I thought the luck power was what's her face from Deadpool 2.
Domino? Yeah. No, they both have luck powers.
That's funny.
It's just that like because Scarlet Witch's thing was basically I affect the luck of whatever is happening in my immediate vicinity to do whatever I want. But the writers just got tired of that and just made it generalized hex magic that does whatever the plot needs it to do.
Oh, yeah, that's always fun. Let's see here. Kaiser says, I hear SkipperWing Productions was working on some animation shorts for Ninja Empire. Is that true?
Yeah. I just need the boards. And then we're gonna go. But what I want to do is I want to do some emotes because like Kaiser Studios has this catchphrase: "Born a ninja, die a ninja." And just like in my head for like the longest time, I'm just like, I know I have the exact emote that I want to animate for this. And I just need to make the time for it. So that's gonna be a thing in the future. Well, assuming that it goes like Kaiser likes what I do with it because there's not guaranteed to be 100% like his taste, but like I'm hoping that it does.
Mm-hmm. I mean, he trusts you enough to commission you for it, so I trust that maybe his interest does line up with what you can provide. Actually, I'm glad we said that. Speaking of that, question for you. In terms of the things that you make and create and whatnot, do you feel that there's any areas in your creative process that could use improvement?
Oh, absolutely. Always my anatomy and compositions. Cause like I like to do things like very cartoony, and then I will just start drawing, and then I won't think about the composition until it's like, oh, this is 90% done. This is not what I wanted to do. So sometimes my planning I think needs a little bit of help. Also coloring. I am not a fan of coloring.
Oh no.
Nah, like what I will do is like I will fill in my flats, and then I'll fill in my flats, and then I'll just shove in some sort of really warm overlay on top of it, and then hope that it all evens out. As opposed to just like, oh yeah, well let me pick a color tone, and then let me base everything around that.
Well, I find that interesting because from looking at your comic strips, it looks like you use like the spot black technique,
Mm-hmm.
and it looks really really good. But if you're saying that's not all, all it's cracked up to be. Is that what you're saying?
Yeah, yeah, and I think that like, or I think I can do it better.
Okay, that's fair.
Um, Same thing with like my animations as well, where it's just like my workflow I don't think is as efficient as it could be.
Mm-hmm.
Um, and so I think that there's a ways to get more animation out because like I look at sometimes look at Sakuga animation,
Mm-hmm.
like basically action animation from the East, and
Mm-hmm.
go, I could do that. It would take me so much time as to be impractical,
Right.
and then I don't want to do that. And it feels like I'm I'm holding myself back from my full potential as an artist.
Mm.
So I think that I could make my process more efficient. I could do my colors a lot better too.
Oh, okay.
I think also just adaptability needs a little bit of work as well.
What do you mean? Elaborate.
So like I can work in Adobe Animate and I can do 2D animation.
Mm-hmm.
Um, but like 3D modeling and 3D animation, I'm not there yet, and I think that that could be integrated into my own actual art style.
Oh, okay.
But that takes time and that takes practicing, and I think just learning that sort of thing is not happening as fast as it could or should be happening.
Mm-hmm.
So,
Well, I mean, those sorts of things, you can't really rush those. It comes with time.
hmm
Um, but I mean, like, if as long as you pace yourself properly and give yourself the ample amount of time to actually try to perfect it, I'm sure you'll be able to get it. And I'm a firm believer of like, if you don't have it now, that means it's not time for you to have it just yet. And then when you do have it, you'll have it.
philosophy, I'm stealing that. Cause yeah, no, that's the honest to God truth. Cause I think in 2018, no, at the tail end of 2017, I made a promise to myself. I'm like, I'm gonna learn actions. I'm gonna learn JavaScript enough to be able to make my comics. And I had no idea how I was gonna do that.
Right.
And by the end of 2018, like I knew how to do what I wanted to do.
Yeah, and you gave yourself the ample time needed in order to do it, right?
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. So like now there's an app on the iPad called Nomad. It's a sculpture app.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm thinking to myself, well, I can make 3D prints with this. Just one problem.
What's the
I'm not a
problem?
I am not a 3D sculptor,
Ah, yeah, that'll do it.
but it's learnable and there's resources. So if I put my mind to it, or as my dad likes to say, I don't know where he got it. It was like whatever the mind can conceive, it can achieve.
Those are really good words. Like, I'm really glad that we're actually touching on this sort of stuff. So now my next question is like, do you yourself, Skipper Wing, have a philosophy that you go off of within your creative processes? I mean,
Uh,
we've already rattled off a few, but I would like to know what your personal philosophies are in regards to creation, content
so
creation, and whatnot.
my philosophies are twofold.
Okay.
Um, Put up or shut up,
Yep.
and if it's worth doing, it's worth doing well.
Okay.
So like, or to put another way, because like my favorite Transformer is Jazz from the Transformers toy and animated series, and so my favorite one is Jazz because no lie, it's because he's the black one. We all know it's true.
And he survived in that movie. Suck it, O'Sullivan.
um, but like the catchphrase that they gave him on the back of his box is like, do it with style or don't bother doing it at all. And while I'm not a fan of the don't do it at all, I am a big proponent of do it well, do it right. Like don't just like because the work has to last. You're not going to be able to sit in front of every person who sees it and say, oh well, I wasn't feeling that hot this one day. I wasn't using my perfect ideal software. I wasn't blah 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 blah. It's like no, like be good at what you do, and let it. And like if you're good at it and you're willing to stand by it, it'll show in the work.
Right.
But don't like but also like don't while you don't make excuses, but do the best that you can with what you got. Because especially in 2022, where like I personally think that iPads should be standard for every art student who wants to learn it, because they're just that good now.
Right.
Um, like I think that like the tools are there. If you want to be an animator, Krita has tools. Krita is free. Blender is free. You want to be a 3D modeler? Blender is free. You want to do visual effects? I don't really know what's in that market, but like, in terms of graphic design, Affinity Designer is cheap.
Mm-hmm.
So like, be good at what you do. The other thing is when I say is put up or shut up. I like the other phrasing of like either go do in the bathroom what you came to do, or get off the toilet.
Oh, nice.
Because there's so many people where it's just like, I want to be a comic artist.
I want to be
cool.
the very best, like no one ever was.
Mm-hmm. And it's always interesting to me that people are like, well, I want to be a comic artist. I'm like, well, give me a comic strip first. And they can't give me a comic strip. It's always, here's my world building. Here's all the epic things that my characters are going to do and see and blah, 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 blah. And I'm like, cool. Give me a day in their life. And people can't do that. Right. Give me a comic strip. Don't give me a comic page. Don't give me a comic book. Give me a comic strip. And people can't do that.
Yeah, and I'm very glad that you brought that up, because that is actually very, very important, because I think I saw a post on social media a while back where it was like, what type of music would your original character listen to? And I remember looking at that post and just thinking to myself, I honestly don't know. Like, that was just something I never even thought about. And then, like, I had to ask my wife, right? Like, what would Nevaeh listen to? And then she was like, she probably listened to, like techno or something. And I was like, a lot of creators, like, it's always the small details that they take for granted. Because it's like, oh, well, it's this, and this. Like, they got all these powers, they have all these abilities, they're like a complete and utter, like, badass and all this other stuff. But it's like, okay, so what do they do during their downtime, right? How do they, like, if they're an action type character who's always, like in the thick of, like, all the, like, just all the freaking action and just enemies are attacking them on all sides, what do they do to calm themselves down? Mm-hmm. Because if we look at Samurai Jack, for example, the man spends basically the entire series just fighting for his life. Mm-hmm. And like the few episodes we have where he's not doing that, or he at least has a moment of levity, he's just like, when does it stop? Right? And he's just, and then he starts getting like the daggone PTSD and like all the other stuff, and it's like, it's those types of things where it's like, it sets the difference between having an okay character and having a really awesome fleshed out character. Mm-hmm.
But it's also people's ability to get things done too, because right. Because I think a lot of people, they think of the Crimson Fly as like, oh, you've got like 1,000 strips and blah 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 blah. I'm like, nah, it's just like week by week, make a strip, and then once that strip's done, on to the next one.
Right.
And then by the end of the year, I've got 52 strips.
Yeah, and they're really good too. Like, I'm not even trying to like brown nose or anything like that. No, they're really, really good.
Oh, thank you.
Yeah, Cats and Kittens in the chat. If you haven't already, like, the links are right there on screen. Like, I would recommend, like, at the very least, go to Webtoons, look up the Crimson Fly, and just check it out. Like, it's some really good stuff. Oh, that's right. Glad we said that. So about the Crimson Fly, the main thing that I got from it when I went and read it all and got caught up is that you have the ability to give a narrative without the use of words or text. And that is extremely impressive to me. I think like the only other narrative that I know of that does something similar is called Gun. It's a manga featuring this tiny dinosaur, and I don't think it's very long, but it's just a manga where this tiny dinosaur just goes through a whole bunch of hijinks, and there's no text or anything. It's just this little dinosaur. So my question for you is, how'd you come about going with that direction for your storytelling? And yeah. We'll just start it from there. Go.
So I was actually kind of lazy.
Okay.
So like I knew that like masking and the like was a thing in Adobe Photoshop, but I didn't know how to do it and I didn't want to learn.
Okay.
So I was just like, well, I don't want to really learn how to do masking for the text bubbles and so on and so forth. I just want to go. So
right.
I'm just gonna forego text entirely.
Oh, okay.
And just make it so that the silhouettes are really, really clear. The expressions are really, really clear, and it's actually affected the fly's design too, because people were telling me, I'm like, I don't really know what the character is supposed to be thinking with the opaque Spider-Man irises. So I'm like, okay, well, let's just make it so you can see the actual irises inside the mask.
Right.
And then like, oh, the silhouettes aren't very clear because I was used to animating the character, having the silhouettes be clear from the poses. And so suddenly it's like, oh, the silhouettes have to make more sense. And so the combination of trying to make the expressions clear and the silhouettes clear made eventually just made the entire storytelling clearer.
Oh, okay.
And I mean, part of me wants to say it was some high-minded thing that like you can read it in whatever language you want and still get the general gist of what's going on. But the reality is that like I just didn't want to do dialogue and text, especially since I found like when I first started out doing dialogue with the character, because the comics used to have dialogue. And what I was finding I was doing was that I would draw the strip and then fit the dialogue in the margins.
Right.
So you get this very awkward dialogue of the character saying like something like, it feels like he would be that way. And it's like, well, nobody speaks like that. And I'm like, yeah, I know, but I didn't have any space.
Nobody talks like that.
And so what I should have done is I should have course corrected by doing my scripts first and then doing my dialogue. But instead what I did is like, well, no, I like having more space for more, so we're just gonna scrap dialogue entirely.
Oh, so you didn't always script your stuff at first?
Nope.
Oh, that's very interesting.
And like what I found is that like you have a stronger sense of character that way, because suddenly the character has to communicate entirely through not only entirely through pantomime, but the audience gets to make up their own characterization for the character.
Yeah, and
like
it makes your story more interactive in a way.
Because now the reader has to actually pay attention and read.
Right.
Which I think is like going back to Sonic for a hot minute. I think that's part of the reason why Sonic's modern incarnation, both the long version, the long stretchy version, and even the classic version, don't hit as hard as they used to, because in the games, Sonic would just pantomime whatever he wanted, and you just had this inkling that he was very, very snarky.
Right.
And like, there's the difference between American snarky and Japanese snarky.
What's the difference? Please explain.
So Japanese snarky is a very polite kind of snarky, where it's like he said something and it's got a little bit of bite to it, but it's not outright rude.
Right. Kind of like our friends at the UK, where they're always polite even when they're being douchey.
Well, I mean, even Japanese, even more so.
Mm-hmm.
So, but then once they started putting the games in English, and the games were developed in Japan first, the American audiences were like, "Wow, why is Sonic so sleepy all of a sudden?" It's like he doesn't have the kind of bite that the cartoons gave him. And it's like, well, it's Japanese games for a Japanese audience and what they think is edgy, and their idea of edgy is nowhere near as edgy as our idea of edgy.
Right.
And it's telling that like Sonic only really got his snark back starting with Sonic Colors when American writers started writing him for the games.
Right.
Where it's just like, oh, like the whole no copyright law in the universe is gonna stop me, or the whole we're gonna break into this amusement park to see if Eggman is doing or Dr. Robotnik is doing anything bad, as opposed to waiting for him to actually do anything bad.
Right. I'm glad you kind of double stepped there. Are you an Eggman guy or are you a Dr. Robotnik guy?
I'm an Eggman guy, for two reasons. One, I am an originalist.
Mm-hmm.
So it's like if the guy was originally called Dr. Eggman in Japanese, and the games are primarily for Japanese audiences, and we just happen to be a target audience, then Dr. Eggman is his name.
Okay.
The other reason is that I think that like due to the aforementioned oh, there it goes again.
Yep, it's all good. We'll okay. Well, I guess while we're getting everything reestablished again, let's get caught up in the chat. Okay, so let's see here. Okay, read that. You don't disappoint. LOL. It's my kind of character design question. I mean, I've been doing this for like almost 2 years now. I hope my questions are getting better. The Black Dragon listens to Kill Switch Engage. Oh, okay. Nice. Alright, so let's see as we try to get everything reestablished yet again for the third time. But I mean, this is fine. Let's see. So let's see. So you're an egg. You're a Dr. Robotnik guy. No.
Oh, Eggman.
You're an Eggman guy. Okay.
Yeah.
So let's see here. Do this. Then we do that. Okay. I had to double check, make sure I readjusted my screen, because I had to make sure I don't forget these things. All right. So I have resent it, and then I'll just. I need to do this and do this, and then we do that. We're getting slightly better at this. Slightly better, a little bit at a time,
Oh no! Don't join with video because then you're just going to only see the top of my head.
Oh, yeah. There was your ceiling, and now there's your profile picture.
Yeah, it doesn't like the Surface Laptop Studio was not designed to look at to do video while also being laid down like a laptop.
Right.
So.
Okay. All right. We're back in business.
So yeah. So part one is that like, if the Japanese people who are making these games call him Dr. Eggman, he's Dr. Eggman.
Right.
But the other part is that I think that there was a tonal miscommunication for the games. So like in Japanese, Dr. Eggman's implied to be this goofy weirdo that like, sure, he's got this super awesome tech, but it's not anything better than what the rest of the world has. Right. And when he's capturing the animals, he's not like converting them into the Borg from Star Trek. He's just putting them inside animal capsules.
Yeah.
And they just serve as living batteries. It's a prison that just kind of drains from you. It's not turning you into a robot.
Right.
And when America got their hands on it, they're like, oh, it's like the only way that he could operate autonomously the way he is if he's already taken over the entire world, and Sonic and his friends are the last of a dying breed of mutant animals, as opposed to just like
freedom fighters.
Yeah. I mean, like, heck, even the Sonic the comic in the UK, they're like, Sonic is not naturally blue, he's a mutant.
He's a mutant? What?
Yeah, so talking hedgehogs and the like were a thing in the Sonic the comic in the UK. but he started off as a brown hedgehog without super, who had super speed, but not like insane super speed like he has in the games.
Mm-hmm.
And so they're like, and so he meets up with this nice, kindly scientist named Dr. Julian Kintobor. Say it backwards.
Kintobor. Kintobor. Wait, no. Oh, robot? No.
Yep.
Robotnik. Okay.
Yep.
Okay. I
And
had to think
so,
about it for a second.
like, he meets up with Kintobor, who wants to study his speed and
Uh-huh.
why he's so fast. And so they eventually they make a machine together, and it gets sabotaged by like dimensional forces and a rotten egg, and it
Uh-huh.
turns Dr. Kintobor, the kindly Dr. Kintobor, into the evil Dr. Robotnik.
Oh boy, that's a
Um,
lot.
and then it also turns Sonic blue.
Hmm.
Whereas in the games, he's just always been blue. Everybody has super speed. It's just that Sonic is the fastest of the super speeders.
Right.
And and so like it's like it kind of implied that like while Eggman is a bad guy, he's not
Uh,
anywhere
right.
on the like near as bad as like say Bowser or Ganondorf or M Bison or any of those guys.
Or Ridley.
Yep. Um and so but the thing is that the games got adapted into the TV series and it was like it's so hardcore for a 90s value of hardcore.
Are you implying that you're not a fan of the Saturday morning Sonic the Hedgehog that
Um,
focuses on the Archie comic version?
um, I am a fan in its own vacuum.
Mm-hmm.
In retaking it as quote unquote the definitive property, not so much.
Right.
Because I feel like it's like the Mario Brothers Super Show, and all of the Mario Brothers media, where it's like they're from Brooklyn. And it's like, not only are they not from Brooklyn, there probably wasn't a Brooklyn from them for them to be from. In fact, there probably isn't an Italy for them to be from. So I don't know where those accents are coming from.
Right.
Because my thing with media is just like whatever the medium of origin is, that's my de facto quote unquote canon.
Right.
And like anything else is adaptation, which has to be taken with a grain of salt.
Right.
Like the most famous example in recent memory is the Star Wars extended universe,
Mm-hmm.
where it was basically legal fan fiction.
Wow. That is a very interesting way of putting it. But I get it though.
Because like it's like, oh well, Luke and like Han and Leia have a kids, and it's not just the one kid, it's the three kids, and they're the most powerfulest Jedi of all time. And
Mm.
Chewbacca dies by having a moon thrown on his face, and there's a enemy that's even more powerful than the Emperor, and they're immune to the Force. Oh, and by the way, the Emperor is back, and he's cloned himself, and he's cloned Luke, and Luke is dead, been drawn to the dark side, and blah 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 blah.
Right, and it just kind of goes from there, just off the cuff.
And the thing that people left unsaid is like, when they make a new Star Wars movie, none of this will have happened. Like people like to use the term canon. Like none of this will be canon.
Right.
But like the reality is that it's not so much it's not canon as it never happened. Like Han and Leia didn't get married and stay married for like forever and have three kids. They got divorced after the honeymoon period ended, and their son fell to the dark side, and they only had one kid. Luke never married, never passed on the Skywalker genes to a son. He founded a Jedi Academy and blah 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 blah. And
Mm-hmm.
the fans were blindsided for like all of 10 seconds because their thing was just like, you can't do this. What about this canon that I have invested so much time, energy, and money into? What do you mean this didn't happen? It's not real. The books that I bought and the money that I paid was misspent. Essentially, is what you're saying.
Jesus. Oh my
And
gosh.
and Disney said, you'll buy it again, and we don't care.
Right.
Like, we'll still let you buy the books because that's money that's going to us. But this stuff, you have to let it go. It didn't happen. And that's kind of what happened to Sonic. I mean, that was kind of a foreshadowing for what happened to Sonic when Archie lost the license.
I didn't real. I didn't realize that Archie lost the license. They've had the license for so long.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. I forget. I think 2017 they lost the license. It's either 2017 or 2018. They lost the license, and it went to IDW, and IDW picked up from the ending of Sonic Forces, and then continued as if nothing ever happened.
Mm.
But the Freedom Fighters, they did not exist. Your Sally fan fiction, I'm sorry, it never happened.
Like I'm not too butthurt about the whole Sally fan fiction or anything, but my whole thing is like, yo, like I used to collect the daggone the Archie Sonic comics for a little bit, and like, you know, freaking canon or not, like they had some really. I mean, if you disagree, then you disagree. But I thought they had some pretty interesting characters that they introduced to the franchise. Like mainly the villains, though. And maybe it could just be that I'm just kind of a fan of that type of writing. Um, because the one thing that the Archie comics Sonic did, they always made these characters where it's like, if they are a threat to the world, you will know that they are a threat to the world.
Mm-hmm.
Freaking Mammoth Mogul, threat to the world. Scourge, when he became like a supersonic variant or whatever the case, threat to the world. Knuckles, when he became Interjack, threat to the world. Like they did a really good job of like, yo, the end is nigh, the end is nigh, when these characters come about, and like, dang, that sucks that they lost the rights to it. Aw.
Well, and like not only that, but like some of the ideas that they explored, like Mammoth Mogul, the end of his arc is basically, I'm just gonna wait until you're dead of old age, and there is literally nothing you can do to stop me.
Yeah.
Like at one point, he just confronts Sonic and says, like, look, while you're alive, I'm just not gonna win. I have accepted this. However, I have been here before you, because he's basically the Sonic Comics version of Vandal Savage.
Right.
Like I predated you, and I will outlast you. You've got what, like 40 more years of being the great awesome teen hotness.
Mm-hmm.
Like once you're old and gray, that's what I'm hitting.
Yeah.
And what are you gonna do about it? You're gonna be old.
Yeah.
And I like the idea that like Eggman realizes like okay, Sonic will always win, but he won't always be able to protect his friends. And so then Sally gets roboticized and all that jazz. And
Right.
like the current writer Ian Flynn, he cut his teeth on Archie. Like the Sonic Mega Man crossover is probably second to Crisis on Infinite Earths, in my opinion, in terms of how to do a crossover properly.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, sorry, JLA Avengers. No, Sonic and Mega Man has you beat.
Nice.
The first one, not the second one, which was basically Sega versus Capcom.
Right. Whenever you do company versus company, that never ends well.
Mm-hmm. But Mega Man versus Sonic, or rather, like both characters get their moments. Everybody's like, granted, Sonic's friends don't get as much utility as they could.
Mm-hmm.
But like the play between Wily and Eggman, as they have this romance that like you're like, of course they'd like each other, but then as the series goes on, of course they'd start to hate each other.
Mm-hmm.
So and it's really good. Archie had some good stuff.
Yeah,
like,
they had some really good stuff.
But like as a consumer, you can't attach your identity to fictional constructs, essentially.
Right.
Like, as much as I love Sonic, he's not real. Or Spider-Man, or what have you. Like, Spider-Man does not exist to espouse great power and great responsibility. Spider-Man exists to make money for Marvel and by extension Disney.
Right.
And if he happens to do that through great power and great responsibility, fine. But I'm not going to pretend that like everything he does is going to be in the service of to telling a better story, like him selling his marriage to the devil to save his aunt.
What's up, Miss Ebony? How you doing? And no, he's not necessarily complaining. He's just, to be honest, he's just being real at this point. Mm-hmm. Like this is basically one of those, oh, too bad, so sad about your childhood. Here, pay some more money so you can try to rebuild, right? So, that's basically what's been going on.
Well, and the cool thing about that is that like there's so many things to rebuild your childhood with nowadays.
Right.
Like if you don't like Spider-Man, go read Static Shock, like the new series that DC's putting out under the Milestone label.
Mm-hmm.
Like that's good stuff. The 6-issue miniseries that they did recently was really good. I haven't played it yet, but like I've got Freedom Planet on my wish list, and it started out as a Sonic the Hedgehog fan game.
Let's see. Hold on, I'm just doing a little bit of touch up here. Mm-hmm. Bro, you have been sharing. You've been sharing some very interesting insight, and this has been really, really awesome. We're going to just keep the momentum going as I'm using your reference sheet at the moment. Let me see here. What else we got? All right, so we covered that. Do you have any big upcoming projects that you would like to share with the audience?
Nothing beyond the return of the Crimson Fly to the internet. Mm-hmm. I was gonna shoot for sometime this year, but I think I'm gonna put that back until the beginning of next year. Mm-hmm. And just the Pop Wings video essay series.
Oh, that's awesome.
Where it's just like as you can say, so sad. Saying, "Oh, too bad, so sad for you about your childhood."
Right. Yeah.
But I mean, like,
go on. No, go on.
But the idea there is not to be negative for the sake of negativity's sake, because anybody can do that. That's easy, and also like, I do like venting, but I don't want my brand to be complaining and looking for things to complain about.
Right.
It's like celebrate what's working and correct what isn't, or redirect people towards what is working. Rather than just like, oh well, oh well, She-Hulk's not great, and I'm like, okay, well then, let's go watch something else.
Right.
I don't know what else, because like I mean I'm enjoying She-Hulk.
Like are you into like having debates about those sorts of things, or is it just one of those things? Oh, go ahead.
It's the internet's kind of ruined that sort of debate mentality for me, because like a person something I keep saying about a lot of modern based issues is that you can't logic yourself out of a position you didn't logic yourself into.
Right.
A lot of the self-referential humor in the She-Hulk series is like that's a staple of the comics. Mm-hmm. But people kind of went into it having feelings, and so you couldn't get away from them. Mm. And like no matter how you point out to somebody whether something is comics accurate or video game accurate, or how it's not trying to insult you, or it's not for you, or what have you, some people are just gonna never come out of that mindset. And even if they do, like even the people who know better, some of them, it's in their best interest to keep other people down in the dark. Because it's like, be angry. Now give me money while I tell you what to be angry at and how to fix it. And it's like, okay. Or we could just watch something else.
Right.
So I'm not really interested in people's debates about stuff, because it's like, you're gonna feel how you feel.
Right.
All I want to do is present. Hey, well, have you thought about it this way?
Right.
Like,
Because
like, mhm.
sometimes people like they'll say those things like, uh, "Oh man, this is bad. This is horrible. It's at the third," and then like they'll say all that, but they'll never specify why. Right.
Yeah,
Or when they do specify why, it's a very flimsy reason to the point to where it just comes off as I feel like you're only saying this because you're trying to just get a rise out of people, not because you actually feel this way.
hmm like when Falcon and Winter Soldier dropped, I had a friend where they watched the first episode and like this is my first time that they I told that they didn't like it
Mm-hmm.
on the same things like I understand why he's jumping out of a plane, and I'm like that they explain it like the second that we're on the plane they explain why we're jumping out of the plane.
Mm-hmm.
Like that's not a the a bad storytelling thing. That's a you weren't paying attention when they told us why he was doing it. And then they went as they went on. They're like, "Well, I don't like the flying. The flying is boring." And I'm like, "You're telling me a dude with a on a glorified glider, dog fighting like 50 aerial tanks is boring?
mm.
Like, what world? In what world is a dude on a glorified glider outflying 50 helicopters boring?"
Doing something that you can never do or never hope to do at any point in your life. How is that boring?
Mm-hmm. And then eventually the friend admitted that they didn't like Bucky as a character,
Mm-hmm.
and they had never liked any of the Captain America movies. And I'm like, maybe Captain America's not for you.
Right. There are other things that you can invest your time into.
Mm-hmm. But at the end, they were like, the show's bad, and I knew it was going to be bad from the beginning. I'm like, no, you hate watched the show. Like, you hate watched it. I know you don't want to admit that that's what you did, but that's what you did.
Hate watching. I've actually never heard of that term before.
Where, where it's like you go in to watch something knowing that you're not going to like it, and then just finding things to complain about.
Right. That makes perfect sense.
And it's
And
a form of catharsis because you're just like, yeah, I hate this thing, and I don't like it, and I think it's going to be bad. So I'm just going to go in thinking it's going to be horrible, and then if it proves me right, it proves me right. If it
right.
doesn't prove me right, then well
Whatever.
then
Whatever. I still don't like it.
exactly. And again, it goes back to the whole mentality of you can't logic yourself out of something you didn't logic yourself into.
right.
So if you go in hating something, you're not gonna logic yourself out of hating it.
Right. Because you've established from the get go that you were not going to enjoy it.
Mm-hmm.
So expecting to be convinced otherwise after you've already convinced yourself that you're not going to enjoy it, that's asinine. That doesn't make
Mm-hmm.
sense.
Mm-hmm. And then also by the same token, apply standards equally. Like if you like something, like oh god, this one friend of mine, if he ever listens to this podcast, is gonna kill me. But like, like Andrew Garfield and Tobey Maguire showing up in Spider-Man: No Way Home
Mm-hmm.
didn't do much for me. Because within the context of the Spider-Verse, in the context of the thing, it's like, cool, it's just two alternate versions of Peter Parker.
Right.
Like it's the Ghost of Christmas Present and the Ghost of Christmas Future. With Holland being like the Ghost of Christmas Past, still going through his episode.
Right.
But like you like in the theater, not in the theater, but like in the home release, you get this feeling like the movie pauses itself when the two characters step through the wormhole, like you're supposed to clap.
Oh.
And I'm like, I'm not clapping. It's just two different versions of Peter Parker.
right.
Like, it worked in Into the Spider-Verse, because it's, yes, even though 3 of the 5 Spider-Men are technically alternate versions of Peter Parker, it's implied that they're very, very different people otherwise.
Mm-hmm.
And it helps sell that message of anybody can be Spider-Man. But when Garfield and Maguire show up, it's like, yeah, I recognize those guys.
I recognize those guys from, or maybe I don't, because it's been a very long time since Maguire was Spider-Man. That was a very, very, very long time ago. Oh boy.
Or like when he gets the arc, when Molina gets the arc reactor, Tony's arc reactor in his hand, he's just like, the power of the sun in the palm of my hand, and you get the feeling that somebody's just like thinking in the brain, he said the thing. So, like, and that's the thing is that, like, if you enjoyed it, good, like, absolutely, I'm happy for you. Like, Andrew Garfield and Tobey Maguire are legitimately good actors.
Mm-hmm. But are they good Spider-Man?
Yeah.
Oh, okay.
I think that they are, but, like, I did not come to this movie just to recognize things and be patted on the back for recognizing things.
Right.
Like, I came to the thing to see, like, how does Tom Holland's character evolve? And his character just gets rebooted. And I'm just like, that sucks. Because at the end of the movie, he's basically back where he was before he ever met Tony Stark, except worse off. Because now Aunt May is dead, and sorry, spoilers.
By the way, spoilers, you guys.
He has no connections to his Avengers friends and all of that jazz. And they just reset it. Because they needed to reset it in case Tom Holland can't come back and they can't, Papa Marvel and Mommy Sony can't reach an agreement ever again. So if he never shows up again, it's fine.
Right.
Yeah, it's just it's like I said, the antithesis of cinema sins is not cinema wins. It's cinema smarts, whatever that form that takes for whoever is doing the thing, and
right.
like using your own smarts to figure things out, not just oh well, this video essay told me to feel a way about a thing.
Yeah, just be more savvy instead of just, being force-fed stuff that just isn't good.
Mm-hmm. And like know the impact of what you're consuming and how you consume it too.
Mm-hmm.
Because you get a lot of people where it's just like, oh well, like I don't like the thing. I'm like, then don't buy it. Well, how can I justify my opinion if I've never played it? I'm like, that's just the cost that you're gonna have to suffer.
Yeah, like the fact that you do not own said thing that you don't like should be evidence in itself that you do not care for it. You don't have to go out of your way to like prove that point any further, right? Just if you don't like it, don't invest in it.
But it was like, I'm tired of Marvel movies. And I'm like, no, you're not. It's like, how can you say that? I'm like, because you have a Disney Plus subscription. You keep talking about it. You keep complaining about it. You've obviously still seen it. You're seeing them on a thing basis. By the only metric that matters, which is the only two metrics that matter are watch time and money spent in the absence of watch time. So if you're watching every episode, you're telling Marvel or you're telling Disney you like it. Like, you're not even telling Marvel you like it. You're telling Disney that you like it. It's like, well, how do I tell them not that I don't like it? Don't watch.
Yeah, don't watch, don't invest. That's how you tell them.
Like, if you are a professional critic, that's one thing. And when I say professional critic, actually, I don't even mean professional critic. If your job is you are a professional consumer, because let's be honest, that's what most quote unquote reviewers are.
Yeah.
Is professional consumers.
Allegedly.
Yeah. Then that's one thing. If you're just some Joe Schmo with like something thousand followers on Twitter and you're not making any money off of those followers, you are under no obligation to spend money on this thing. So people like to not spend responsibly and or consume responsibly, and then they get surprised when the corporations do the thing that the corporation promised they were going to do.
Mm, mm, mm. I'm over here looking at your screen.
Aw.
That's just looking so clean and whatnot. Like, I'm no slouch, but like I said, you're definitely a few steps more experienced than I am by a substantial margin. But but I do my best. I do.
You do. And like you went to AIW too, yeah?
I did.
Yeah, I think I graduated before you did.
I actually did not graduate, but I'm pretty sure you did graduate prior to me. Yes, one way or the other.
Yeah. Well, yeah, cause like I was class of I got out in 2010.
I came in at around 2010.
So I missed you on the way out.
Yes.
So. Yeah, and the thing is that like graduation isn't overrated, but it's like as long as you got out what you wanted to get out of school, that's all that matters.
That's true. Yeah, I get. So let me ask you this: like, what was the main thing that you wanted to get out of your time at AI, and did you get it?
Didn't know what I wanted when I went in.
Okay, well, hindsight being 2020.
Like learning how to draw, and learning how to animate. Like the first one was just like I wanted to learn how to make comics. I wanted to learn how to draw. And I got that. Like the teachers there, top notch. And I'm not just saying that because like we ended up being coworkers and all that jazz.
Right.
Or like one of my former professors is in the chat.
Right.
Like I got that out of the school. I also got work ethic out of the school too. Where it's just like again that whole like put up or shut up mentality where it's just like that came from being a student and having to actually try and not just kind of coast through on this is art school, it's supposed to be fun for everybody. It's like no, this is a job.
Yeah, this is trying to get you prepared to get a career in the field of art and illustration and such. If you make friends and or connections along the way, that is but a byproduct of your time at said place. That is not the focal point of said place. So yeah.
Yeah. So it just is like, and that's the thing that you kind of like. I think that's the thing that a lot of students don't really realize is why are you here? Because I think a lot of people think, oh well, I'm just gonna go, and then it'll be like the Bakuman anime, and I'll just luck into people who will point me in the right direction of where I need to go and what I need to do, but I won't really need to change myself too much or work too hard because I'm already good as I am, and so on and so forth. And if the teacher fails me, it's because they don't like me as a person, not because I'm not good at what I do, and so on and so forth. And when they get out, and it's just like, I don't get it. Where are the jobs?
Right.
And it's like, well, you had to work harder than what you were willing to do. And
yeah, there was some amount of effort that was required on your end, and you did not deliver that. Hence why you're in the situation that you are in now.
But I also think that the schools need to teach for more than just the industry too.
Yeah, I agree with you on that. Because like being prepared for the industry is one thing, but also the industry isn't the end all be all as well, and there has to be some level of understanding on that.
I mean, like,
go ahead.
I mean, like, look at what we're doing now. It's like this is the podcast stream method. It's not something that you learn in school.
Right.
Or like how like social media is a legit place to put your portfolio. Like, yeah, DeviantArt's kind of not what it used to be, and DeviantArt was probably never whatever promised it was
Right.
supposed to be. But like it's still one of the premier gallery sites for putting your stuff online and where people can see it and have an easy way of seeing what you do and what you want to do. I mean, who you say you want to be.
Right.
Um,
Cause Lord knows I still use mine.
mm-hmm. Because like Twitter is not a great place to put your stuff if you want to archive it and have people be able to find it later on.
Yeah,
It just isn't.
yeah, because eventually it just kind of what falls off, right? And then
Mm-hmm.
and it doesn't
Um,
archive. Same thing with Facebook.
yeah, and like Facebook, you have to be a person's friend, and I mean,
Mm,
yeah, you can do the following, but the feed is just not built for that.
right.
And I mean, even to a lesser extent, Instagram, like, yeah, you can go to somebody's Instagram gallery, but like, they're not. The whole feed thing is just, it's kind of icky to me. So I just like knowing how social media works. That's a skill, and knowing which one is right for you too. Because like if you if you want to do speed paints on YouTube, you have to be the kind of artist where like that's just what people want.
Right.
Um, but otherwise, like you're gonna get to YouTube and you're gonna be like, I don't understand. Why don't people want to see my speed paint videos? And it's like, well, they're not the hottest thing.
Yeah, it's not what's in demand. Like
Mm-hmm.
like you got to pay attention to what's in demand because I remember like when I first got on the Twitch, all I ever saw on social media is like, don't worry about the algorithm, don't worry about your numbers, only focus on making connections. And I was just like, well, how do you expect to make connections if you don't focus on the algorithm? Because the thing
Mm-hmm.
about the algorithm, the thing about your stats is that it tells you at what point do people actually start showing up in your streams versus when they just don't show up at all, right?
Mm-hmm.
And that makes all the difference. And so,
Mm-hmm.
like, it's not a matter of, oh man, you have to make this your career or anything. It's more along the lines of, if you want to go that extra step further, you have to utilize the extra steps and utility and tools that are available to you so that way you can actually, well, go that extra step.
Mm-hmm. Like, and same thing with like the numbers, where it's just like, oh, Skip, you focus too much on the numbers. I'm like, the numbers are not in and of themselves the important thing.
Right.
The numbers are an indicator of reach,
Right.
where it's just like, okay, well, this many people saw your post, and that's what you're likely to expect going forward. So if a post doesn't do well, and it doesn't do like hit the same numbers as the previous one, you should probably ask yourself why. So that way you can correct it, and then the next post after that can hit the numbers that you wanted the one that just missed out to hit.
Mm-hmm.
Like like you shouldn't be obsessed with them in the sense of like, oh well, I have to hit like a minimum of this many number of posts and followers. It's But you should be aware of when something is not doing well. Like on one of my alternate accounts, I had somebody. I did a piece of animation for a friend,
Mm-hmm.
and I noticed that like it was not hitting the numbers it should hit for one of my animations. And but what I noticed also as well was that the only people who were responding were followers of that friend who I'd done the animation for.
Right.
And I found out that the reason for this was because I'd started the tweet with at the person.
Right.
And so when that happens, only they can see it and only their followers, if it gets retweeted, can interact with it. So I learned a whole new function of Twitter that I did not know existed.
Yeah, if you tag somebody, then a lot of people that are associated with them will also be able to see it as well.
Hmm.
Yeah.
So, but the only reason I found that out was because I'm like, this didn't do as well as it should have.
Right.
And like conventional like self-care wisdom says, hey, yeah, no, just let it go. That post just didn't do as well as it was supposed to, but everything will balance out in time. And I'm like, no, this didn't do as well as it's supposed to, and I want to know why, because I want to do better for all my future posts. So, yeah, it's these are things that I think that need to start being taught in art school.
Mm-hmm.
Just as media literacy in and of itself needs to become a bigger focus in education in general. Where it's like, how do I process a thing that I just watched or played or read?
Mm-hmm.
Because
And how do I like properly assess what I have seen or read and make it applicable to what I am doing, and how I can add it, I can make it to where I can improve and become better as a result.
Because on the flip side, all the people who are saying, "Oh, when did media become so inclusive?" Um, it's like, well, it's always been that way. You've just missed the message. But the flip to that is, like, well, wait, what is the media telling us that that so many people can miss the message so hard? Because there's too many people who are just like, oh yeah, when did Star Trek get so trying to appeal to these people? And it's like, if you've gotten so many people saying that about Star Trek, you might want to look at what Star Trek has been putting out that's causing people to miss the message so hard.
Right.
Which because then that means that you need stronger storytelling, and you need to be more clear about what messages you're trying to convey. But I mean, like when Captain America Winter Soldier came out, like not the Falcon and the Winter Soldier, but like the movie The Winter Soldier came out, and you have basically fantasy patriot act. Like, why aren't we talking about that in schools as like, hey, this is a thing that happened in 9/11.
Right.
I guess the teachers would still be in college. Would be in college when Captain America came out if they lived through 9/11 and the Patriot Act and all that jazz. But like when a movie comes out and we have media for it, why aren't we talking about it in schools?
I guess the educational priorities are just not there.
Nope. Oh, there we go again.
There it goes. But you know what? I saw your stuff. It looked really, really good, and I think we did really, really good, sir. How do you feel? How do you feel?
I feel really good.
Excellent, excellent. Let me see here. I think I can drum up one more question. So, all right. So let's just say we have some would-be artists in the chat. Maybe in the future, when people watch this on YouTube on the replay, if you could give them any solid piece of advice on their creative pursuits, what would it be? Go.
In terms of high-minded advice, don't wait for the A grade to start doing the thing that you want to do. Like, don't wait for somebody to tell you you are good enough to start making comics or start making animations or what have you. Just start making them right now. Put it out, fail at it, fail very quickly, learn, and then keep making more. That's number one. And then in terms of practical advice, y'all need to get your hands on an iPad. Because that thing has everything you need right here and now to get started as an artist. Like, like you don't have to necessarily get the iPad Pro. Like, get yourself an iPad Air or anything in the $300 to $500 range. That'll be fine. And an Apple Pencil, and then Procreate's like $5, $10 maybe max. Rough Animator's like $5, and then just go. Just go.
Not sponsored, by the way.
Yep. No, definitely not sponsored. Like, you don't need Photoshop, you don't need Clip Studio, you don't need anything super major. You just need the cheapest art software you can get your hands on and just start going.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, TLDR is basically, don't wait to become good enough to start. Just start and get an iPad and Apple Pencil. Apple Pencil 2.
Well, SkipperWing, I appreciate you for stopping in tonight, for being a part of this month's McAgee3 Meetup. You have been very, very insightful, and you've been a very, very awesome guest, and I thank you very much for that.
Thank you for the host. Thank you for having me. Thank you for the opportunity. And thank you for the wonderful discussion. This has been a lot of fun.
Good, good. I'm glad you enjoyed yourself. And we actually had a lot of interesting things that we discussed tonight. In the meantime, I stream every Tuesday, Friday, and Saturday at 10 p.m. Eastern Standard Time USA. Tuesdays is Art Tuesdays. Fridays, TGI McAgee3, we do adventure games normally. Saturdays is Saturday Sluggers, where we do fighting games. If you like what you saw, give your man a follow. If you loved what you saw, give your man a sub. But either way, let folks know that McAgee3 is out here putting quality content for each and every one of you. Wait for it.
Are we still following this guy?
Social media, you can find me on Twitter, Instagram, and DeviantArt at McAgee3. I also have a YouTube channel called McAgee3 Productions, where I do my off-stream grind, casual crashers, and McAgee3 Meetup replays, which you will see this on the YouTube channel not too long after. If that's something you're interested in, hit the subscribe button on the YouTube channel to get up to date on all the content that comes up there. I'm also an artist, as you can plainly see. I do, oh my gosh, I'm forgetting my outro. I do emotes, sub-badges, avatars, and banners, but currently I'm working on my original comic book, Blue Ninja, The Story of Devaya, which you can find on the DeviantArt page, deviantart.com/McAgee3. Episodes 1 through 5 are available for your reading pleasure, and every Tuesday I'm working on something of bio related to Blue Ninja, so check that out, it's awesome. SkipperWing, do you have anything for us on the way out the door?
Follow this man!
Yeah, yes, please follow me, SkipperWing. Thank you for the follow. You're loved and appreciated for that. Thank you. Let's see here. In terms of the next few days, tomorrow we've got Multiverses on the docket for Saturday Sluggers. Tuesday we will have our October edition of McAgee3 Meetup, and then next week we will have our first October edition of TGI McAgee3. So,
who's showing up for the next meetup?
The next meetup is going to be Association of Original Gentlemen. He is a professional beautician technician.
Yo.
I mean, you call him a barber, but no, I like to use the technical terms. He's going to be next up. And yeah, I hope you guys are looking forward to that. Thank you one and all for spending your precious time with McAgee3 and SkipperWing. You all spending your precious time with us lets us know that our content is worth your precious time, and your time is that is very precious to us, so thank you very much. Shout outs on the way out the door. Miss Ebony Love, follow the Kaiser, and I believe that is it. SkipperWing, thank you for the follow. You're loved and appreciated for that. Thank you. Also,
I don't know why I wasn't doing it earlier.
Huh?
I did not know why I was not doing it earlier.
It's fine. Like, better late than never, right? But yeah, I appreciate everything. I appreciate you all. You guys are great. Best audience a guy could ever ask for. That's going to do it for tonight. I will see you all tomorrow for another edition of Saturday Sluggers. If I don't see you tomorrow, I will see you on Tuesday for our October edition of McAgee3 Meetup. And if for whatever reason, I'll see you on Tuesday, I'll see you next week for our October edition of TGI McAgee3. So you all have a wonderful, wonderful weekend. Have a wonderful, wonderful Saturday. And in regards to what's going on in the world right now, I will once again leave you all with this. It is always darkest before dawn. So you all have a wonderful, wonderful evening. Bye-nie!
Bye!